The United States coins dated 1963, most commonly the Jefferson nickel, 5 cents, and the Washington quarter, 25 cents, represent the final years of pre-1964 American coinage and preserve many classical design elements and inscriptions that had already become emblematic of U.S. numismatics. The 1963 Jefferson nickel, composed of 75% copper and 25% nickel, features on its obverse a portrait of Thomas Jefferson, designed by Felix Schlag, with the inscriptions Liberty to the left and In God We Trust to the right, separated by a star, and the date 1963 placed near the rim. The reverse depicts Monticello, Jefferson's Virginia home, along with the Latin motto E pluribus unum. Across the top, the building name, Monticello, centered below, the denomination 5 cents under that, and United States of America along the lower edge. Although billions of nickels were produced in this era, 1963 nickels remained popular among collectors due to their clean, simple design, Cold War era context, and the challenge of locating examples in high grades with sharp steps on Monticello, referred to as full steps, FS, which dramatically increases value. Meanwhile, the 1963 Washington quarter, struck in 90% silver and 10% copper, one of the last years before the U.S. Mint eliminated silver from circulating quarters in 1965, features a bust of George Washington on the obverse, designed in 1932 by John Flanagan, with the inscriptions Liberty at the top, In God We Trust, to the left of Washington's profile, and the date 1963 at the bottom. The reverse displays a heraldic eagle with wings spread, perched on a bundle of arrows symbolizing preparedness and strength, with United States of America above, E pluribus unum, beneath that in smaller letters, and the denomination quarter dollar, curving across the lower rim. Because 1963 quarters are silver, their value depends not only on collector demand but also on silver bullion prices, mint condition, and clarity of detail, particularly on the eagle's feathers and Washington's hair. Both the 1963 nickel and quarter were minted at Philadelphia, no mint mark, and Denver, marked D, with Philadelphia examples lacking a mint mark entirely until later years. Historically, these coins circulated widely during a period of American social and economic expansion, just before major shifts in U.S. coinage, such as the Coinage Act of 1965, which removed silver from dimes and quarters. The presence of inscriptions like In God We Trust, adopted widely after the Civil War and codified as the official U.S. motto in 1956, Liberty, symbolizing the founding principles of the nation, and E pluribus unum, Latin for out of many one, a motto used since the 18th century, connects these coins to long-standing American identity and symbolism. For collectors today, a 1963 5-cent piece or 1,963 silver quarter carries historical, aesthetic, and material significance, often preserved in albums or certified holders, and valued for its representation of mid-20th century U.S. minting practices, artistry, metal composition, and the cultural ideals engraved into every piece of circulating currency from that era. Next top. The year 1964 occupies a remarkably important place in the history of United States coinage, and both the 1964 Washington quarter and the 1964 Jefferson nickel, together representing 25 cents and 5 cents respectively, form essential parts of the narrative of America's transition away from silver coinage, making them historically significant pieces that continue to be studied by collectors, historians, economists, and those interested in national symbols such as the inscriptions In God We Trust, Liberty, and the centuries-old motto, E pluribus unum, which appear prominently on these coins. To understand the meaning and background of these pieces, it is necessary to look not only at their designs and metal content, but also at the economic conditions, minting practices, artistic choices, and political circumstances surrounding their production. Beginning with the 1964 Washington quarter, which was the last regular-issue U.S. quarter struck for circulation in 90% silver. A composition that had been standard for the denomination since the 1790s, this quarter bears on its obverse the portrait of the first U.S. president, George Washington, facing left, sculpted by John Flanagan based on Jean-Antoine Houdon's neoclassical bust of Washington, with the word Liberty majestically placed above the head as a permanent reminder of the foundational principle on which the nation was built, while the phrase, "In God We Trust," appears to the left of Washington's profile. Reflecting both the long tradition of religious sentiment in American civic culture and the adoption of the motto as a standard inscription on coins during the Civil War era, beneath the portrait lies the date 1964, the final year before the Coinage Act of 1965 eliminated silver from the quarter and dime, replacing it with copper-nickel-clad metals due to rising silver prices and widespread hoarding by the public, which had begun in the early 1960s when the metal value of silver coins approached or exceeded their face value. The reverse of the 1964 quarter features a powerful heraldic eagle with outstretched wings clutching a bundle of arrows, symbolizing military readiness, and an olive branch, symbolizing peaceful intentions, while the inscription, United States of America, arches over the eagle, beneath which appears, E pluribus unum, a Latin phrase meaning, out of many one, expressing the unity of the American states and the blending of diverse people into a single nation. A motto that has appeared on U.S. coinage since the late 1700s and remains one of the most enduring expressions of American identity. The bottom of the reverse displays the denomination quarter dollar, marking the piece as worth 25 cents. In 1964, the Philadelphia Mint, which used no mint mark, and the Denver Mint, which used the D mint mark, produced enormous quantities of quarters, hundreds of millions, because the government was attempting to counteract the hoarding of silver coins by releasing them in unprecedented numbers, a strategy that ultimately proved ineffective, since as fast as the mint issued silver coins, the public removed them from circulation and saved them. As a result, 1964 quarters are extremely common today, but they remain important as the final circulating 90% silver quarter, containing approximately 0.1808 troy ounces of silver, making them valuable both numismatically and as bullion when silver prices rise. In contrast to the silver quarter, the 1964 Jefferson nickel, the 5-cent piece, was composed not of silver but of the standard peacetime alloy introduced in 1866 and continued from 1946 onward, 75% copper and 25% nickel, creating a hard, corrosion-resistant coin that could be used extensively in commerce, vending machines, and banks. The 1964 nickel features the long-running design by sculptor Felix Schlag, selected in a 1938 contest held by the U.S. Treasury to determine the new design for the new Jefferson series that would replace the Buffalo nickel. On the obverse, the 1964 nickel shows a right-facing portrait of Thomas Jefferson, principal author of the Declaration of Independence, founder of the University of Virginia, diplomat, philosopher, and third President of the United States, with the inscription, "In God We Trust," placed to the left of Jefferson's profile, reaffirming the national motto also found on the 1964 quarter, while the inscription "Liberty" curves along the right side, followed by a small star next top. The United States coins dated 1979, especially the Jefferson nickel, 5 cents, and the Washington quarter, represent an era when American coinage was transitioning into the modern age while still retaining many of the classical design elements first used decades earlier, making these coins historically important for collectors and enthusiasts. The 1979 Jefferson nickel, minted in a copper-nickel alloy composed of 75% copper and 25% nickel, features the familiar obverse portrait of Thomas Jefferson, originally created by designer Felix Schlag in 1938. On this side appear the inscriptions, "In God We Trust," to the left of Jefferson's profile, and "Liberty," followed by a small 5-point star and the date 1979 to the right, symbolizing the nation's foundational principles and cultural identity. The reverse of the nickel depicts Monticello, Jefferson's neoclassical Virginia home, with the motto, "E pluribus unum," arching at the top, and beneath the building appear the inscriptions Monticello, 5 cents, and United States of America, arranged in a traditional and symmetrical format. While most 1979 nickels are common, their condition greatly influences collector value, especially coins exhibiting full steps, FS. A grading designation reserved for coins showing clearly defined steps on Monticello, indicating a strong, sharp strike. These FS nickels can be significantly more valuable, as they are harder to obtain in pristine form from regular circulation. Meanwhile, the 1979 Washington quarter, struck in copper-nickel clad, after the U.S. Mint removed silver from circulating quarters in 1965, carries the classic design by John Flanagan, featuring the right-facing portrait of George Washington on the obverse with Liberty boldly displayed above his head, the national motto, "In God We Trust," to the left of the portrait, and the date 1979 centered below. On the reverse of the quarter is the heraldic eagle, wings spread wide in a proud and commanding posture, clutching a bundle of arrows as a symbol of national defense and preparedness, surrounded by an olive wreath representing the nation's dedication to peace. The inscription, "United States of America," arcs above the eagle, with "E pluribus unum" centered just beneath it, and the denomination quarter dollar, forming the lower border. Both 1979 nickels and quarters were produced at Philadelphia, no mint mark, Denver, D, and for some coins, San Francisco, S, with San Francisco primarily striking proof coins intended for collectors. Although these coins are typically common in circulated condition, they reflect a significant period of U.S. minting history, occurring during the technological modernization of the mint, the continuing use of durable clad metal compositions, and a time when America was navigating major cultural and economic shifts. The inscriptions Liberty, "In God We Trust," and "E pluribus unum," all deeply rooted in American ideology, echo themes of national unity, faith, and freedom, while the enduring imagery of Jefferson, Washington, Monticello, and the American eagle connects the 1979 coinage to the long historical lineage of U.S. currency. Today, 1979 5-cent and 25-cent pieces often appear in ordinary pocket change, yet they hold interest for numismatists who appreciate the variations in strike quality, mint marks, die characteristics, and overall preservation. High-grade examples, especially those with full steps on the nickel or strong, crisp details on the quarter's eagle, are sought after for their aesthetic appeal and their representation of late 20th century American minting craftsmanship. Even though these coins remain abundant, their designs preserve an important legacy within U.S. history, expressing national values through both artistic symbolism and the inscriptions that have appeared on American money for generations. Next top. The coin often referred to as a 1989 United States quarter is a 25-cent piece, not a 5-cent piece, though people sometimes mix the two terms because both coins are common, inexpensive denominations used daily in American circulation. The 1989 quarter belongs to the long-running Washington Quarter series, which began in 1932 to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth and continued with the same basic obverse design until the state quarters began in 1999. Minted at the Philadelphia Mint, the 1989 quarter carries the P Mint mark, marking it as a product of the nation's oldest minting institution. Like all circulating quarters produced after 1965, the coin is composed of a copper-nickel-clad alloy, a pure copper core sandwiched between layers of copper-nickel, which gives the surface its familiar silvery appearance while keeping production costs manageable and making the coin durable for decades of circulation. The obverse front of the coin features a left-facing portrait of George Washington, designed by sculptor John Flanagan, with the bold word Liberty positioned above or around the portrait, representing one of the founding ideals of the United States and serving as a reminder of the freedoms the nation was built upon. Just beside Washington's profile is the national motto, "In God We Trust," which has appeared on U.S. coins since the 19th century and expresses a traditional, government-endorsed reflection of American spiritual heritage. It also symbolizes continuity across the nation's currency and reinforces a connection between governance, trust, and collective values. Beneath Washington's portrait appears the date 1989, marking the year of minting, and near it, usually to the right side, the P Mint mark indicates Philadelphia as the place where the coin was struck. On the reverse back of the 1989 quarter is the long-used heraldic eagle design, also by Flanagan, showing a majestic American bald eagle with outstretched wings, perched on a bundle of arrows symbolizing defense and readiness to protect the nation, while an olive branch below represents the desire for peace. This artistic combination conveys America's balance between strength and diplomacy. The reverse also contains the phrase e pluribus unum, a Latin motto meaning out of many, one, which signifies the unity of the states and the coming together of diverse people to form a single nation. This motto is one of the oldest national expressions and appears on nearly all U.S. coinage. Above the eagle are the words United States of America, and below, the denomination quarter dollar, clarifying the coin's value as 25 cents. In terms of production, the year 1989 saw hundreds of millions of Philadelphia minted quarters, making them generally common and not inherently rare. Because of the high mintage, most circulated examples hold only face value unless they are an exceptionally high grade. Collectors often look for uncirculated, mint state, or proof quality examples, where sharp details, bright luster, and the absence of wear can make the coin more desirable. Although the 1989 P quarter does not typically contain any precious metal and is not unusual in composition, errors from the minting process, such as off-center strikes, broad strikes, die clashes, or double dies, can create special varieties that are worth more to collectors depending on rarity and visual impact. The coin also reflects the historical transition of U.S. coin production during the late 20th century, when the mint relied heavily on high-speed presses and clad materials to meet circulation needs for a growing economy. Even though an ordinary 1989 P quarter is extremely common in pocket change, it carries cultural significance because it represents nearly a century of the Washington quarter tradition, displays iconic American mottos, and remains tied to everyday commerce and national identity. The common confusion with 5 cents likely arises from the similarity in how everyday language treats coins. Nickels and quarters are both small, inexpensive units of money, but technically a quarter is worth 5 times as much as a nickel, and the two coin types differ completely in design, metal content, imagery, and historical context. For collectors, historians, or those simply curious about American currency, the 1989 P quarter is a typical but interesting example of how the United States Mint expresses national symbolism, civic values, artistic tradition, and everyday practicality through a small but widely recognized piece of metal that has passed through millions of necks top. The coin commonly referred to as a 1990 P United States quarter is a standard 25-cent piece, not a 5-cent piece, though people sometimes confuse the names because both denominations are everyday coins used so casually that their technical classifications are easy to mix up. The 1990 P quarter belongs to the enduring Washington Quarter series, which had been in circulation since 1932 and remained unchanged on the obverse until the state quarters program began in 1999, and the P mint mark identifies it as having been struck at the historic Philadelphia Mint, one of the oldest and busiest coin-producing facilities in the world. Like all circulating quarters made after the Coinage Act changes of the 1960s, the 1990 P quarter is composed of a copper-nickel clad alloy, meaning a core of pure copper layered with outer surfaces of cupronickel. This combination provides durability, resistance to corrosion, and a cost-effective way for the mint to produce billions of coins without relying on expensive precious metals. The obverse front of the coin features John Flanagan's classic left-facing portrait of George Washington, with the powerful word Liberty positioned prominently above or near the portrait, symbolizing one of the central ideals upon which the United States was founded. To the left side of Washington's profile is the national motto, "In God We Trust," a phrase long associated with U.S. coinage and officially adopted in the 19th century as a reflection of the cultural and spiritual heritage of the nation. On coins, the motto serves as a constant reminder of trust, unity, and continuity across generations. Just beneath the portrait sits the date 1990, indicating the year of minting, and near the portrait is the P mint mark, which only began appearing on Philadelphia minted quarters in the 1980s because earlier decades did not use a P on circulating quarters. Turning the coin over, the reverse displays the striking heraldic bald eagle design, also created by Flanagan, which had been a dominant symbol on quarters for many decades. Here, the eagle stretches its wings in a poised and powerful stance, perched atop a cluster of arrows representing military readiness and the nation's willingness to defend its freedoms, while directly beneath the arrows lies an olive branch, symbolizing peace and diplomacy, balancing strength with the pursuit of harmony. Surrounding the eagle are important inscriptions: United States of America, arches across the top, and the denomination $quarter runs along the bottom to specify its value as 25 cents. Also engraved on the reverse is the Latin motto, E pluribus unum, which translates to out of many, one, an enduring symbol of American unity that appears on nearly all U.S. currency and expresses the idea that the nation is formed from many states, cultures, and people coming together as a single collective identity. In terms of mintage, the year 1990 saw an extremely large production run at the Philadelphia Mint, making the 1990 P quarter one of the most common modern quarters in circulation. Because so many were made, the vast majority have only face value unless they are in uncirculated, high-grade, or special error conditions. Collectors generally look for superb mint state examples with sharp details, strong luster, and no signs of wear, or for die varieties and minting errors, such as off-center strikes, double die obverse, broad strikes, clipped planchets, or die cracks. These errors can markedly increase a coin's desirability if the flaw is dramatic, well-preserved, and clearly visible. While an ordinary circulated 1990 P quarter might seem unremarkable, it is still a significant reflection of late 20th century U.S. coinage technology, representing the era's reliance on high-speed stamping machines, clad metals, and efficient mass production methods. It also embodies deep cultural meaning because the inscriptions Liberty, In God We Trust, and E Pluribus Unum capture three central concepts of American identity: freedom, faith, and unity, while Washington's portrait ties the coin to foundational history. The misunderstanding with 5 cents simply arises because people often describe coins loosely in conversation, but technically a quarter is worth 5 times as much as a nickel, differs completely in composition, size, imagery, and history, and plays a distinct role in everyday transactions. Although common, the 1990 P quarter holds a place in the long legacy of U.S. currency as a durable, symbolic, and widely circulated piece of national artistry that countless Americans have used in daily life for more than next top. The 1994 P United States Washington Quarter is part of the long-running Washington Quarter series that began in 1932 to honor the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth, and carries the familiar obverse portrait sculpted by John Flanagan, depicting Washington in left-facing profile with the inscriptions Liberty, arching across the top, and In God We Trust, placed to the left of Washington's neck, a layout that remained standard for decades before later design changes in the 21st century. The P mint mark directly behind Washington's ponytail identifies it as a product of the Philadelphia Mint, which in 1994 produced hundreds of millions of these copper-nickel-clad circulation strikes, using the standard composition of outer layers of 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded to a pure copper core, yielding the familiar silver-colored appearance that replaced the pre-1965 90% silver alloy. On the reverse, the quarter still carried the classical heraldic eagle design created by Flanagan, an eagle with wings outstretched, perched on a bundle of arrows symbolizing national readiness and defense, with 2 olive branches beneath to represent peace, the entire arrangement framed by the inscriptions, United States of America, above, and the classical motto, E pluribus unum, out of many, one, centered just above the eagle's head, while $quarter appears at the bottom to denote its face value. Although many people confuse denominations, this coin is not a 5-cent piece. Those are nickels. It is a standard 25-cent quarter that circulated widely throughout the mid-1990s, a period before the introduction of the 50-state quarters program that dramatically changed quarter design starting in 1999. A typical 1994 P quarter found in pocket change today is common and worth only its face value unless it happens to be an exceptionally high grade, such as mint state, 65 or above, where collectors may pay a premium because achieving pristine, mark-free surfaces on mass production clad coinage is notoriously difficult. Errors such as off-center strikes, die cracks, missing clad layers, or double dies also increase collector interest, though they must be authenticated by reputable grading services to carry real value. Historically, this coin reflects the transitional era of U.S. circulating coinage, when designs were stable but minting technology was rapidly improving, with high-speed presses and better die preparation resulting in generally sharper strikes than earlier decades. At the same time, the Washington quarter design was approaching the end of its uninterrupted 60-plus-year run, soon giving way to one of the most popular commemorative circulating programs in American numismatic history. In everyday life, millions of these quarters pass through cash registers, toll booths, vending machines, and buses, carrying with them the enduring symbolic elements of American identity: Washington's resolute profile, the national mottos affirming trust, unity, and liberty, and the eagle emblem that for generations served as the visual shorthand of American coinage, making the 1994 P quarter not only a piece of pocket change, but a small artifact of late 20th century America whose design, materials, and production techniques connect directly to both the earlier silver era and the modern, highly collectible era that followed.